Hello, everyone. My name is Shannon Carls,
And I'm
and,
Kathy Miller.
and we are going to walk through a story that we've put together for you about a 3-year project that we did to transform a business to a lean enterprise. It's a true story of how we did that and went through a lean manufacturing transformation.
So let me tell you a little bit about myself and my background. Again, I'm Kathy Miller, and I'm the Global Vice President of the Vertiv Operating System, and also the president and founder of YK 2020 LLC. It's a coaching business for those who want to thrive in business and life. I literally started my career in manufacturing in a vehicle assembly plant at the ripe age of 17 years old, and have progressed through a number of operations leadership positions in automotive electronics, a diversified industrial, aerospace, and currently in digital infrastructure. I progressed through manufacturing, engineering, and spent most of my time in operations, and have led lean transformations from both a corporate leadership functional standpoint as well as running a large number of plants and operations. Shannon, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Shannon Carls. I'm a senior operations manager. Most recently, I've also started my own company. It's called YS 2020, focusing on public speaking, coaching, mentoring, as well as consulting. So Kathy and I are working very closely together on some of these future opportunities for us that has developed over the years since we've met. And we'll tell you a little bit about our story in a minute. So a little bit about my background. I actually have a supply chain degree. I spent a lot of my career working in various supply chain functions. And then I found my passion in lean manufacturing. And then I quickly moved through multiple operations roles, most recently running a large manufacturing assembly and machining facility. So now I've taken the time out to start my own company and work with Kathy on this story and a little bit more about that as we progress, and the book that the two of us are writing in much more detail about what we're going to share with you today.
So Shannon and I met when I was the VP of Lean and Quality for a diversified industrial company. They had over 300 plants, and I was busy globetrotting, going around and helping to teach lean manufacturing, lean enterprise, and auditing different plants throughout the company to make sure that we were progressing on our lean journey. And so I showed up one day to do an audit of Shannon's plant. I had never met her before. But as luck would have it, I forgot my safety shoes that day. And before I could go out to the floor, I asked them if they had a pair for me. And they took me into the shoe cabinet, which was filled with dozens of men's safety shoes. Her safety shoes, which fortuitously were the exact same size that I wear. So that's how it all started. And a little bit time later, I ended up getting off the road and running my own P&L, a division of the same company. And at that point, I invited Shannon to interview for the job of the lean manager for the 4 plants that I was running. And so that's how it all began.
Yep. So we will talk a little bit about shoes as we go, and you'll see why at the very end. But this is how our little shoe sharing story began, and what an opportunity it was. So as we walk through it, we'll explain a little bit about it. But real quickly, let's talk about why we feel our story is important. So as we all know, there's still not a lot of women in executive roles in manufacturing. And the reason we felt our story was so important is not because lean transformations are a new thing or lean tools are new, but because it's a story of the two of us and how we both held different roles and different leadership roles, and how we supported each other through our journey towards this great successful results that we'll share with you. So we talk a little bit about how we did it, a lot of the why in our story, and then the results that we achieved. We'll also demonstrate how making this transformation will improve the culture of the workplace from safety to inclusivity. It'll improve the profitability of the business and provide enhanced value to the customer. So that's why we're here today, to share our story with you.
So these are not fictitious results that you're looking at, and we're very, very proud of these results. And these are the results of one of the 4 plants that we transformed in our 3-year time together. This is the one that was labeled a model plant, which was an internal recognition for a company that had over 300 plants. And it was to achieve lean model plant, you had to rigorously implement the lean tools in the lean system, as well as get impressive business results and pass rigorous audits, internal audits, to make sure you had put in place sustained business processes. So we were very, very excited to finally get this recognition. It was really, really important to me because I had run the lean and quality program for the corporation before going to run one of the divisions. And so I wanted to show all my peers that, you know, this stuff really worked and that I could practice what I preached. So again, all the traditional metrics associated with operations, safety, injury rate decreased by 74%. We had a 50% improvement in our profitability levels, 16% in our productivity, 93% reduction of quality defects, a 45% reduction in inventory or our work in process, and a 54% reduction in lead time from when the material came into this plant and was ready to ship to customers. But one thing that people don't really think about that often is the increase in sales. And what actually ended up happening was our plant became one of our best sales tools, where people wanted to bring in customers and they were very impressed with what they saw when they went through the plant and met our people and watched our processes.
Yeah, and like Kathy said, these results almost seem too good to be true, but we did double, triple, quadruple check them because every time we look at them, we think, God, did we really do that? And the cool thing is that the other three plants had directionally similar results. So even though this was the model and this is our example, we were able to deploy the same tools and techniques across all four sites, and still get exceptional results in all of them. So the question is, how did we do this?
So when I first came to the division, I had to set the vision and really spend a lot of time explaining to the team what good looked like for me as a new leader in the organization. We talked about all kinds of things that we were going to do together, but really about, you know, being honest about the current state of the business and explaining what the future state would look like after we had implemented lean manufacturing. I was really passionate about us working as a team. I don't like silos. I don't like teams not working together. I'm okay with constructive conflict, but I like for people to work things out together and then come to see me if they can't resolve issues. So I was really fanatical about, you know, don't come into my office and tell me what you can't work out with your peer unless you guys come together. So we talked a lot about those types of things and how we were going to work hard and how we were going to win and how we were going to make this a very healthy business for all the people to have longevity. And so their children's children would have an opportunity to work there in the future. I'm very competitive. I work very hard and I like to win. But I also think we spend a lot of time at work and it's okay to have fun. So we talked about, you know, people should be happy coming to work every day. And it's okay to take your job very seriously, but not yourself so much. And I also expected people to be their own stewards of work-life balance, because it is really important that we take care of our families and our own well-being in these very challenging career choices. So those were the things that I continually had to communicate about when I first joined the division.
Yeah, and once we had the vision set, and we'll get into that a little bit more, we looked at the tools and the structured lean implementation, and we weren't just looking in the manufacturing plants, we were also bringing it into the office. And that all took a structured timeline that we'll share with you in a little bit. And while the tools were important, obviously, to implement, we were really focusing a lot on the people. Like Kathy said, we wanted people to enjoy where they worked and be proud of where they worked. And at the time when we came in, there was a lot of mixed emotions about that. So as Kathy mentioned, what good looks like. So when she tried to paint the vision of what good looks like, it was difficult for people to understand and really buy into. So we went down a lot of training. whether it was safety observations or structured safety training. We talked about quality. We did problem solving training, just a whole plethora of everything we could think of. We called in all of Kathy's friends from the corporation to come and help us, truly, because we were dedicated to this path. The really interesting thing is as we started to do these various training sessions and started to engage more people from different functions, we tapped into all this potential we had no idea existed in these individuals. Aside from the fact that they were great at doing their jobs, each one of them had these unique talents that we didn't know about and their teammates didn't know about. So we started to deploy our talent across the organization as we learned of these all of these amazing traits that our people carried. And the biggest thing is when Kathy set the tone for how we were to function as a team, we drove that all the way through the organization. So all the way down to everybody on the shop floor as well. We let them know their voices would be heard, that they were allowed to have comments and questions, and we would still be happy to listen to them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But the biggest thing that from the vision standpoint that Kathy said was that it was okay to be who we are. So whether that's the fact that we're women, the fact that we all have flaws, we may be demanding, we're requiring to wear our steel toes because obviously safety was always first, but then celebrated the fact that, hey, maybe we like to dress fashionably and wear fun shoes in the office too. So we were just allowed to be ourselves, and we never let that waver from our journey. And I think that led to a lot of our success as well. So as we continue on, we'll talk a little bit more about setting the vision and what that looked like from Kathy's perspective.
Yeah, at the beginning, it really was very difficult. You're coming into a new environment, and I'm trying to paint the picture of what a lean enterprise looks like. And although I had been going around the corporation and teaching it, it's a different thing to have that person who's a real disciple for it be your leader. And most of the people understood some of the basic concepts, but they hadn't gone and seen other model plants or other plants that had really been far along in their journey. So I had to spend a lot of time painting the picture of what a lean enterprise looks like. There was a lot of communication. And, really, it's about creating value for our customers with great quality, and the shortest amount of lead time possible. And, it sounds easy on a piece of paper, but there's a lot of hard work to really continue to improve your operation to new levels of performance. So kept painting the picture of what that looked like. I spent a lot of time on the floor talking to people, listening to people, making observations, so much so that they many times asked me if I had conference calls that I should go back to in the office. But it was important. It was really important to set the picture. And sometimes it wasn't just in the big communication meetings. It was the one-on-one conversations. It was the, let me show you how this could be better. So I spent a lot of time voting with my calendar and spending time on the floor. And, while it all sounds good, I really had to earn the team's trust, right? I had to be sincere. I had to be consistent. I had to be accessible. So, that took quite a bit of time really to earn the team's trust. They, every time you have a new leader, there's this sort of feeling like, okay, here we go again. And what's important to this one? And, can we outweigh her?
Yeah, it's so true. And as Kathy was painting this picture for us, and we're sitting in this conference room our first day, I'll never forget it. These big numbers are being thrown out, like, when you do this, you're going to get a 50% productivity improvement and a 40% inventory reduction, and you're going to free up 30% of your floor space, and all these other amazing things that are going to happen. And I just remember looking around the table at these people on our team, and they're all like, okay, come on. Like, really, how in the world are we going to possibly do that? So there was a lot of that we battled all the time too. You could tell some people wanted it. Not everybody was against it. Some people wanted it, but it felt impossible. So we challenged that a lot as we went through this process. And it wasn't just in the beginning, it was through the entire thing. And I think Kathy had a couple eye rolls. I know I had many eye rolls when we asked them to do certain things. So we had to really accept that and create that open door policy to continue the dialogue as we continue to set the vision.
Yeah, a lot of breathing, right? It's a little bit infuriating when people are rolling their eyes at you, but it's okay. At least a little bit more about what's going on in their minds and souls as they sit there listening to your questions and your coaching. So patience was really key.
Absolutely. So as we move from setting the vision, we had to walk through what it was going to look like from a true lean implementation. And like I said, this was running in parallel in the manufacturing plants in the office. Obviously, these don't all correlate directly. But as we walk through this, you'll see some themes that develop. And like we said in the beginning, none of these tools are new that we're talking about, but maybe the implementation and the way it's laid out a little bit may be something that's presented differently. So I'm just going to explain a little bit of this slide because this was where the bulk of the work really was done. So as we started down this roadmap, right, you have to start at understanding the current state Kathy talked about. So we're developing teams, we're defining our value streams. All of that is pretty normal when you're going through a lean implementation. And then we had to go down the data collection path because more often than not, the data that we needed wasn't available. So we had to sometimes manually collect it. We had to create reports to get it, involve IT. I know our IT team loved Kathy and I when we come with our great ideas and tell them all the time, like, it's easy, you just got to get the data. So that in itself was a challenge. But as we walked through calculating all kinds of formulas and getting all kinds of data, we started to create a plan for every part. What does that look like? How do we want every single part in our building to function? What does that mean? And then what does that mean for our equipment? How do we do our changeovers? What's our capacity? Again, all this being current state. And then that leads into time studies, which again, tons and tons of time on the floor. Creating standard work. What does that look like? And then starting to measure people. And that was a huge challenge because a lot of people hadn't been measured in their performance before. And we came in and say, well, now we're going to measure you, right? Good, bad, or ugly. And but when we measure you, we're going to help you get better at the same time. And that was the big piece about that communication and engagement that we were trying to drive. So when you put these, into 3 little buckets or 5 buckets, whatever, it seems simple. This was years that all of this took, and it was iterations over years, always starting with a model value stream, and then after a couple of years of being good at it, deploying across the whole enterprise. So we talk about this very simply, but it is a lot of work. So
Yeah,
then, go ahead.
It does. It looks like it's this like clean linear path, right? But that's not how it works at all. This is a order of approach that worked for us, but sometimes it was 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Absolutely. Yes, a lot of that actually. And a lot of disagreements, even between Kathy and I, on how to maybe deploy things. But ultimately, and I bring this up because those types of conflicts are so natural when you're doing these dramatic of changes in a business. Like I said, yes, we're doing a lean implementation and a lean transformation, but what we were really doing was changing how we were running our business. And that is a ton of work and a ton of ideas and people and conflicts, and it's all good. It's all needed in order to move forward. As long as you have that positive approach and everybody's moving in the same direction. So after we understand current state, then we get to start picturing, what does the future look like? How are we going to move through our facilities? How are we going to move all this material and information through our plants? And that's when we start to, get into fun things like material movement and tugger routes. Fun for me, I should say. It's more fun than after collecting data for months and months and months. Now you get to do. So how are we going to move things through our facilities? What does our machines look like in the future? How can we better utilize them? And then we start to get into really the empowerment and the engagement. Let's create natural work teams and have them solve problems. Let's teach them how to do that. So we're engaging the hearts and the minds of everybody in the business. And then we get into material presentation, ergonomics. How do we reduce our floor space? How do we become more efficient with problem solving? And then finally, the last couple that we get into is a little more advanced when you're trying to figure out how to level schedule the facility. That is one of the harder things, in my opinion, to do. And then using Jidoka and escalation plans and inbound signals to help you run your plants more efficiently and talk to you. So like Kathy said, yes, this seems like a linear approach. By no means is it at all. Some things come before the others in some cases, depending on your journey and where you're at in that facility. And a lot of times it's a lot of rework, to be honest, and it takes a lot of patience to get through this process.
So we had the opportunity to explain our journey numerous times with people around the company. And, as I look at it now, it just looks exhausting. I think if we had known all that was required, right, for every step of the way, when you're doing it, you just have to take a deep breath. And so we were working with an outside lean practitioner who really was a sensei for us, a teacher for us, even though I had taught the implementation system, the lean implementation system across the company. I still found it was really important to work with people who, came from Toyota, who have worked with a lot of companies. Not only does it help teach you and, it's always continuous learning, right? Because in every business, the tools apply, but they're different. Sometimes you have to modify them, and thinking's required. So it's great to have a thinking partner with you, and someone that just shows you the next step of the way, once you reach it. So it's like, climbing mountains, and you reach a summit, and then you're like, oh, there's the next summit. No one laid this roadmap out for us. And Shannon did this, and I'll never forget one of our review sessions, and she laid this out for everybody. And it was really the first time anyone had seen it in this order of approach that we did it throughout our plants, including our teacher was like, wow, nice job documenting the process of all the things that come together when you're transforming an enterprise. So it looks very appealing. It's colorful. It looks like people write like dot to dot, or, color by numbers, but it's really, really a lot of hard work, a lot of rewarding work. A lot of Tylenol is involved in the process, and a lot of persistence, just so much persistence. I really had so much passion about this, and there were so many times along the way where the team was frustrated, or we'd put a tool in and then we'd put another one in, and then we'd have to revisit the one we had just put in because we learned more about how to make things flow through our organization. But when things worked and people were contributing and they were happy and knew that their voices were being heard and they were contributing to making the business better, it really took on a really positive aura about it. And I really, was putting a lot of pressure on myself from a number of reasons. One, I had taught this throughout the company. And I know a lot of people were looking, if I could practice what I preach. So it was really important for me to be successful. Two, it wasn't lost on me that I was in a senior executive group where there were less than 15% females. And so I knew, in the back of my mind, although I never really focused it, there was a little bit of pressure there on me to make sure I was successful for other females who wanted a seat at the table, particularly in operations. So all of that was there. And I think, though, the thing that really drove me the most was just being so passionate about having strong manufacturing places where people can work and have good livings for their families and are sustainable businesses, so their children and their children's children can do that. So, I talk a lot about trust and compassion and all those sorts of things, but I really was driven to make sure that we were creating a very solid business through this lean implementation. And I had a lot of passion in it. And I had a great team right around me making it happen.
Yeah. And as Kathy said, we were guaranteeing that if supervisor A was on vacation, the process would still work. And we know that when you've got the hand holding and it's dependent on a person, typically it will fail and that person leaves for the day. So those were types of things that we were thinking through as well, is as we put each one of these in, how do these processes sustain without us or without a certain individual? And that in itself was a whole challenge to this and getting that buy-in. And I'll just reiterate what Kathy said. When our sensei, he always said to us, if you saw the second mountain, you wouldn't climb the first. So that's how much work it truly is. And we looked at him, we're like, oh yeah. Because when we saw the second mountain, we're like, oh boy, okay, here we go. But as Kathy said, our passion drove us, and our passion for the people drove us to really create these successful businesses. The the pressure was on for both of us, me being on the floor all the time, showing them that I could work right alongside them was a big deal for everybody involved, even if I was wearing a dress occasionally with my steel toes. Okay, so let's talk about, we talked about the lean tools. Let's talk about building a culture of engagement and what that looks like.
So one of the things that we were working on at the time was a set of leadership, not so much around compliance, right, but around treating each other according to the 7 virtues, the classical virtues. And so there were different exercises that we did to map our leadership team and understand where everybody's strengths lied. So we were able to build upon each other's strengths. When we went around the room, the team voted my strengths as compassion and trust, which makes me sound like I'm a pretty soft leader. But it was true. I do have a lot of compassion for people. I love people. I love being around people. That's why I think I really gravitated towards operations because, in spite of the machinery and the quality standards, it really is a lot about people. But I really think my leadership is more about tough love is what I would say, because I had a lot of responsibility. I felt very accountable for not only the business, but the people's lives that were supported by the business. And while everybody had a chance to have a seat on the bus, not everybody chose to stay on the bus, and some people self-selected, and I couldn't allow 1 or 2 people to hold back the progress of the whole team. So sometimes, there were tough conversations and things that happened. It wasn't all rainbows and unicorns bringing people along this path. I had to communicate all the time, like all the time. I was at the daily run the business meetings. We had newsletters. I had monthly communication meetings that I did on all 3 shifts at our various operations. And, people have to be told things again and again and again, sometimes before they sink in, particularly if you're using different tools or trying to change habits that had been widely established for a number of years. I think Shannon, remember how we always struggled at the end of the year. There, was always this pressure about inventory, and we'd put in all these systems of, replenishment. And then without us even knowing it, sometimes our buffers would be bled out because we were trying to get to that lowest dollar. And it's happened at every company I've worked at. So it's not really about this one in particular. And it took years before we said, no, we've set up this system and we're systematically working the inventory down, and we're not going to optimize at month end and quarter end. And that just took a ton of communication and a ton of connection with the team to say, it's okay, we're going to do things differently. And if we get in trouble, I'll take the hit, so, and overall that worked for us.
And the communication happened at every level. I mean, Kathy, it definitely started at Kathy and then drove all the way down, all the way from even if I was on the floor talking to the operators about what we were doing. Every time I would sign one of their boards, I would ask, how are you? Do you have any ideas on how we can make this better? What's not working for you? And then it's a running joke that I always had a notepad with me 24/7 whenever I was there because I couldn't remember anything. And I wrote it all down and made sure I could follow up with them because that was a huge piece of this engagement was feedback. And we wanted their suggestions. So how are we going to give them the acknowledgement that we heard you? We see you, we hear you, and we want to make things better for you. So that was a big piece of the communication as well. And the transparency too. We were very upfront. Toyota always called it a glass wall. You can call it whatever you want, but bottom line, it's about transparency. It's about what is the data? What data are we collecting, and what are we doing with it? So especially when we started doing standard work and operator balance charts, we would show them what it said and say, what do you think about this? What do you think about spending 40% of your time walking around? And they were like, well, the customer doesn't want that. Exactly. They don't want that. So how do we fix it? So it's all about that and really breaking the what we've always done type of a culture. We've been fine so far. We're making money. We're not losing money. We're okay. The customers don't complain. The plant's okay looking. But when we would get through each process step and it would get a little bit better, we started to really break down that, oh, maybe there is a better way. Maybe there is a different way of thinking. And again, this takes so much energy and time and talking to people and having that open door policy and really allowing people to be themselves and help them see the future. The other thing we talked about was instilling this supportive learning culture. And what that really means is allowing people to try and fail, as long as you're protecting the customer. But we open that up to say, hey, if this doesn't work, we'll just try something else. No big deal. And people felt, I think, more apt to try new things, knowing that they're not stuck with it no matter what, because we kept finding that they were fighting and fighting, trying to change processes. But once we said, hey, let's just try something different, get 80% of the way there, pull the trigger, stop trying to be stuck in the analysis paralysis and imagine all the things that could go wrong. Let's try it. And doesn't work, we'll change it. So I think that made a huge breakthrough in our progress. But also coming from, from Kathy as well, telling us and allowing us again to have that type of culture and that type of open policy to say, hey, I support you guys. And if it doesn't work out, it's going to be okay. I've got your back. And that was also a really big game changer for us as well. So now let's talk a little bit about fun.
Yeah.
Kathy's favorite topic.
We do like to have fun when we're working. And again, not that it's not serious work, because honestly it is, and there's so much pressure. And I remember in my early days in automotive electronics, someone told me there's two types of leaders. One's a buffer and one's an amplifier. And so, as the leader, there was always a lot of pressure to make every month, every quarter, every year, to help out other divisions that were struggling, to just, customer issues, supplier issues. There's just so many things when you're running a business that you can't always plan for. And as part of a larger team, you always have to do your part for everyone else. So there's just like a lot of pressure, right, to always do better. And so there was always a lot going on, and that was just at work. There's the whole element of, raising a family and all that good stuff too, which which is another part of what Shannon and I have shared over the years together. But I always chose to be a buffer. So if I got called about about a delivery number or something, I always made sure people knew that we had to perform, but I didn't amplify, the negativity or the pressure. Not to say that it didn't show on me from time to time, but that's just how I chose to operate. So we did that, but you've got to keep things fresh. You really do have to keep things fresh. So we did all kinds of fun and silly things. So we'd have Office 5S days. And I loved those. Like, we would bring in dumpsters. I would have pizza parties. Everybody, unless they had customer issues, had 4 hours. They had to do this. And Shannon and I would go around and audit people. And, we'd ring the bell. And if they did a good job, which, everybody did to a certain extent, we bought stickers for their badges and made them put them on them. And, at first, a lot of the people thought we were crazy. I think Shannon actually overheard someone saying, "This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen." But over time, they came to appreciate those stickers, and we're always wondering, what was coming next, the shamrock or something like that. And it just became sort of our fun personality and something to look forward to that didn't cost anything, but united us, but really actually helped us. It helped us become more productive and more safe and those sorts of things. We were really struggling at one of the plants with just safety and reportable incidents. And I was just so frustrated, and we had done so much education, and we tried Okay, you're in trouble if you're in safety. Okay, you're not in trouble if you have safety. And like we just, we're having trouble get their attention. So eventually we made cardboard cutouts of the leadership team, myself included, in our safety glasses and steel-toed shoes. And I was holding a clipboard, and we would change out the safety message on it, and move cardboard cutout Kathy throughout the plant, and then tie the communication meetings to the safety message. We made safety calendars where people would employees would have their children and grandchildren submit safety pictures, and we'd send those out as Christmas cards for all the employees and our customers. And we just got so much recognition about safety, and our numbers started to get better, because I think to a large extent it sent that message that, you know what, there's people at home who care about you. So I don't know if you'll read that in any safety manual, any OSHA manual, or those sorts of things, but we really did try to keep it fresh and have fun while we were working hard. And trust me, there were long days and a lot of hard work, but when it was time to celebrate and recognize people, we certainly did that.
Yeah, and Kathy was great at that. And I was newer in my leadership role at that point. And so I learned a lot about that recognition piece of it, because I'm just like a, let's get this done, we've got so much work to do type of a personality. And I'm definitely a hard driver. And so learning that piece about leadership was huge for me at that point. And really, yes, the celebrations and the stickers were fun, although 5S Day was a lot more work than Kathy leads on to be, as fun as it was. But the public recognition was a big thing, recognizing somebody for some things they did or ideas that they brought up and implemented. So we would bring that up in communication meetings and say, hey, I wanted to acknowledge so-and-so for bringing up this great idea. We implemented it. You guys should check it out. And that really encouraged more people to do things like that. We even inserted fun into silly, mundane tasks that had to happen. Like if you've ever put a pull system in place, there's all these cards and boards and things that have to happen. And a lot of work to maintain them. So we would, put together pull card parties, because that's what most people do in operations. And we would make it fun. We would have like the golden sample, so people didn't flip the cards upside down the wrong way and then get yelled at because it doesn't work by the person moving the material. We'd get paper cuts. We would have, some people were really good at cutting the paper. I was not one of those. So it was just, again, it sounds silly, but we were trying to find some camaraderie in these activities that had to take place. And honestly, they were some of the most fun we had, sitting around talking about how things were working or not working, or just about our lives in general. And we just started to become more and more like a family. And I really think one of the biggest things I learned from all of this is that we are a little bit like a family. We don't all have to love each other. We've got to work hard and work together, but we had each other back. We had each other's back no matter what happened. And that was a big learning from me. And that if we learn about each other as people versus just what we do, the team, the trust, and the depth of that progress moves much, much, much quicker. So with that, Kathy and I we mentioned this a couple times, that this is just a snapshot of our story and what we did and how we did it. We have been working on a book. It's called Steel Toes and Stilettos. It's coming your way, we hope, very, very soon. And I hope that it's come across how passionate we are about this topic. And yes, we want manufacturing to stay around in North America for a very long time. We believe that these tools and techniques is how to create positive work environments and successful businesses. And we're so passionate about it that we've really joined forces in what we've been working on together, calling ourselves the Op Sisters, as we continue through our business progressions and our book publishing. So Kathy, do you want anything you want to add?
No, just that it's been an amazing journey. Not only were we able to transform a business, but we also attained an endearing lifelong friendship. And, that's some of the best part about all of this.
Absolutely. And that's all we have for you today. We are going to, even though we recorded this presentation, we are going to go live with any questions and answers that you may have. Thank you all for your time.